2:30 appointment. So I will have to quietly and unobtrusively leave around 2 o'clock to make it to my 2:30 appointment.
Sounds good.
But it won't have anything to do with you or your subject or anything, okay?
I don't take it personally at all.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for patiently waiting. As Chelsea may or may not have shared, I do have a little one, and 1 p.m. is his nap time. So he's down, but hence the slight delay. So thank you again.
Perfect. Of course, we all get it. We've been there, done that.
Talk about leverage, right?
Right?
Yep.
Women have that. That's our special power, is multitasking, right?
Unfortunately, and fortunately, yes.
And negotiation skills.
True.
Very true. Okay, well, let me pull up the presentation. And let's see here. Just a sec to get it going. Okay, can everyone see my screen? All right. So if you're joining today, it's because you're here for the third class of the Shift series, which is Effective People Leverage. And it's a really appropriate time to be, of course, revisiting any of the Shift topics. How many people so far have either read the book or taken any of the other classes?
I did. Yeah.
Yep. So you're familiar with the topic.
And I just got the book. Woo!
I'll tell you one thing about Gary Keller. He sure does write timeless material. The MREA book is, of course, the Bible, if you will, for our profession. And then, of course, he writes Shift, which is something that a lot of us who have been in the business for a little while read like 3 or 4-ish years ago, around 2018, 2019. And now we're revisiting it, which just goes to show that this business is pretty cyclical. So this won't be the last shifting market we're in. Either way, I think the material, regardless of what the market's doing, is really appropriate. This class in particular, how to leverage. If you want to scale your business, if you want to grow or do things in a more efficient way, leverage is the way to go. So I think given what's happening and what we're seeing with home sales and interest rates, that's one thing that sparks this conversation, but I think there's good things to take away from here. So I'm going to go through the slides. As Chelsea may have already established, and for those of you who joined any of the other classes with any other instructors, we're adhering to the material. I'm going to share my own anecdotal thoughts and experiences, but we are all following the same guidebook, if you will. So I'm going to go through it pretty quick. Meg, we might even be finishing right around when you need to dip out, because I don't want to belabor the point. I think everyone's pretty fast. You read this, you read the slides, you'll hear what I have to say. We'll share our own thoughts and notes, and then we'll move quickly.
Are you going to share the presentation?
Can you see it?
The student materials?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. There is a like a booklet, like a guide that you can use on your own. If you don't have a copy, we can get everyone copies from the office.
I'll put it in the chat too. I'll put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat for you guys.
Perfect. But just going through the presentation right now, I'm going to advance the slides and we'll just go off of what's on the screen. Okay, so first of all, main ideas, perspective on effective people leverage. What is this even all about? Do you have leverage? What do you need to do to acquire it? Taking stock of anything you do already have in existence. So tools or leverage levers, if you will, in your business currently, focusing on doing the right things, the bottom line, and then an action plan. All right, so perspective on people leverage. What is leverage? Any ideas? Anyone want to put it in their own words?
Getting other people to do what you want them to do.
I like that. Can we be everything to everyone? Can we be in all places at all times? We can't. And so the nature of our business, unfortunately, requires us to do that sometimes. And in order to maintain a business, we have to figure out ways to be in more than one place. And we do that by using other people, and not in a negative way, but by tapping into their skills, their own gifts, or their own interests to earn money to do things for us. So using people as leverage is one of the ways that you can scale your business or just be more efficient, have a little bit more sanity. You can also use other things. You can use systems, you can use tools, you can use software. So we'll talk a little bit about all of those things. High achievers, people who are crushing it in the real estate game. Do you think that they're doing everything 100% on their own?
No.
Of course not. They are hiring people. They're hiring a team, or they're outsourcing stuff. And it's really the only way to get to the next level. And when we talk about scale, what does scaling mean? It means going from one pool of earnings, of number of units sold, to the next level up. When you want to scale your business, you want to grow your business, and you want to do it in a linear fashion so that each step up, you have a larger foundation underneath you. And what is that foundation? It could be people. Again, it could be the systems, and it could be any of the tools that you're using. But it's really hard to make billions of dollars without people helping you along the way. So first question for everybody is, how do you know when it's time to add people leverage, specifically people? Any ideas? Anyone thinking about this right now? Anyone have this question in their mind, or they're starting to think like, do I need to hire somebody? And if so, who, and what would they look like?
I'm not yet at that point, but I would love to be.
And when do you feel like you might know? How does anybody know? Any thoughts on that?
You kind of don't. It's just kind of like a day-to-day thing. I mean, from one day to the next, you don't know.
So one of the best ways to figure out when you need to hire somebody is to really analyze your schedule. And if you're not writing things down and you're not keeping track of what you're doing, that's step one, is come up with a schedule and follow it. Or even if you're not following it, you're making notes as to why you're not following it. Because one of the issues could be you're double booking yourself, or you're not accounting for time management accurately. And that could be a clue that you might need help. You might need to hire somebody to do something. We'll talk a little bit about what those things might be that you need to hire them for. But trying to figure out when the right time is to scale and to leverage is the biggest question mark for everybody, because I don't know about you, this has always been the biggest hang up for me. Okay, so I need to carve out some time to teach somebody to do, or explain to somebody how to do what it is that I need them to do for that leverage. And at the same time, it's just faster to do it myself. But then you're stuck in this vicious cycle. You're not actually ever able to scale because you just keep taking on more and more. So looking at your calendar, looking at your schedule, writing it out, figuring out what you're actually sticking to. And that can tell you too, what are the activities that you actually enjoy doing? If you're writing down on your to-do list every morning or before you go to sleep at night, your to-do list for the following day, I need to do this, 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 and this. And you're only getting to one or two of those things, and you roll them over to the next day. And those things that were on the list from the day before still aren't getting done. You've got to be really critical of your own judgment, right? Why am I not doing these things? What is holding me back? Is there something about these tasks that I don't like doing, or that I'm not skilled at, or I'm not confident at, or that will take too much time? And when you can get real with yourself about those specific topics, put those in a separate category and a separate list. And maybe those are some tasks that you can then find someone else to take on for you. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, jotting down some answers to the questions here. Which of your activities are the most dollar productive? And then which activities in your life from that list that you create actually bring you joy? So if you guys want to just take a minute to do this, very simple exercise. You can do it in your mind. You can actually write it down. You can type it up on a note on your computer or your phone. But what are the activities that you do for your business specifically that earn you money? And then what are the things that you like doing? Maybe it's work related, maybe it's not. So just take a minute to do that. This is where we need some Jeopardy music, Chelsea. Anyone feel comfortable sharing? What are some activities that are the most dollar productive?
Lead generation time.
I mean, yeah, that's like top of our list, right? Lead generation.
I think one for me is during a transaction, making sure that everything is, keep the communication that I have between the client and the other client, like the listing agent and all the people involved, because if you do a good job of taking a project management role and getting everything done well, then people tend to like you and want to work with you again in the future.
Totally. That's a dollar productive activity because you're establishing your value, you're having a solid transaction, and you're setting yourself up for referrals or repeat business.
Exactly.
How about activities that might bring people joy in their life?
If I could say, for me right now, since I'm just kind of getting going, open houses.
I was gonna say,
I love them.
I do too.
Do you, Meg?
Yes, I was gonna say
I
that.
do.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
And that's
Because
a
I thought I was
win-win.
a little off, right? Like,
Yep.
but I do. I enjoy talking to people a lot.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yesterday, there was neighbors out doing yard work, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm over here, hosting an open house. If you know any family or friends that want to come live by you, come on in, check it out."
Well, you are in the right business because that is the name of the game, is being friendly, being approachable, not being afraid to talk to people, striking conversation, and hosting an open house. If that brings you joy, that's a win-win because not only is it something that you like, it's also a dollar generating activity. That's awesome.
Thank you.
For a lot of people, of course, spending time with their friends or their family or working on hobbies, maybe just relaxing, Netflixing and chill, whatever it might be that brings you joy. It's good to identify what those things are because the whole goal of working is so that we can also spend time doing the things that we enjoy. And for the most part, people want to work less in order to enjoy the fruits of their labor in life. Sometimes those two things go hand in hand. You actually really like what you do for a living. For instance, working an open house. When you write these things down, if anyone's goal-oriented or likes having those visual reminders and you have them in your office space or, on your refrigerator, or wherever it might be on your phone, having those reminders are really helpful to be clear on why you're doing what you do and who you need to be tapping into to free up your time to focus on those things that you enjoy. So I think that's part of the exercise is knowing what's going to generate income so that you have that time that you can enjoy guilt-free. So this slide is talking about changing the way you do your business from an I mentality to a we mentality. So not that I do the business 100% on my own, but that we do it. There's people that are involved in all of our real estate careers, whether we acknowledge it or not. We're already partnering with a ton of people. So just thinking of it less as an I and more of a we team type of mentality. So this is kind of a little flow chart that can get you to figure out whether or not it's time to scale and to leverage and to tap into some additional people or tools or systems. So you're starting at the top here. Do you have people to help you? If your answer is yes, and you're acknowledging, I do have people that help me. Maybe it's a TC. Maybe it's a title rep that you partner with that helps give you information for farming or for mailers. Maybe it's a stager that you follow for advice or other agents that you kind of co-op and mastermind with. there are people that we're already using in our businesses that we might be leveraging. So your answer might be yes. Maybe you have an assistant or somebody that helps you. Could even be somebody in your personal life that helps you. You hire a housekeeper, for instance, or anyone else in your personal life that can help take a little bit of the load off so that, again, you can focus on those dollar earning activities. If yes, then you kind of go down this flow chart. Is it enough people? Maybe that's where you're at in this process. You have one or two people, but you actually are ready for more, and you need to systematize things and get a little bit more organized in order to truly scale. For the rest of us, we might be in this no category. No, I don't have anybody. Okay, sure, I have a few people that I utilize for my business, but I don't really have anybody that I rely on in order to function, like an assistant or a buyer's agent or something along those lines. So now you're looking at, okay, how do you get leveraged? You can use allied resources, you can subcontract, or you can actually hire people. And then you kind of go from there. So this is for self-identification. You're going to look at this and figure out, where do you fit in this flow chart and what would your next step be? And that can help you determine whether or not you do need to hire somebody or subcontract, or maybe a virtual assistant of some sort. And there are people who have done these things, and connecting with them might even be leverage. Just starting to partner up with an agent who has taken these steps before you can be so time saving, because they've learned a little bit of the hard knocks themselves. And if they're willing to share with you what worked for them and what didn't, rather than going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure it out yourself, you can just say, hey, how did you do it? I would love to learn from you, and save yourself a little bit of hassle. Okay, so you've got some decisions to make, the whole team concept. And this can be a team, like a real estate team, where maybe you're the rainmaker and you have people on your team. Or again, it could be a team behind the scenes type of situation. So you're starting to think about your team, not just as people that you employ or that you contract with, but also your circle of people in your life that you can tap into. And so I think it's important to acknowledge the personal side of all of this. It's not just business that we're talking about with leverage, or people in particular. Like I said, housekeeping or a meal service. If keeping your house clean and organized, or getting that time to work out is a mental load that you don't want to carry, and it's keeping you from being able to focus on those dollar income earning activities, sub it out. Hire somebody to come clean your house. Order a meal service that prepares meals for you so that you don't have to worry about the cleaning or the cooking. Hire the personal assistant to run errands for you. Hire somebody to help you stay in shape so that you've got the physical capability to go after life in the business world. So it's a bigger circle. So who is on your team? Right now, if you could, just take a minute and just think about the people that you already have on your team. Start to identify who they are and maybe who you might want to fill in the gaps with. So people on your team could be, of course, your significant others, could be people in your family, extended or immediate, could be your friends, vendors, people you already employ. Maybe it's a mentor or somebody else that you look to as a guide. And I have a list of some other types of people, but I just want to let everyone kind of let their minds wander and think about who you already have in existence on your team. And if anyone has any ideas or experiences that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear them. There's the music.
I can start it off.
I love it. Go for it.
Okay, so one of them for me would be my children, for being so flexible with my real estate schedule and actually going and helping me with my open homes, my open houses. My daughter loves it.
Future real estate agent.
I know, right? Training from the start. And then another two would be my mentor, Brian Porter. He's been fantastic. And Renee Mello as well. She's been amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll add my mentor's pretty awesome too.
You're
Throw
biased.
that out there. Aubrie is my mentor. But I was going to add too, coach, real estate
Yes.
coach, you know. Mhm.
Awesome. That's on my list.
I
Coaching.
mean, the front desk at office is always superbly helpful for me.
We have the best support staff, the best.
That's true.
My boyfriend is helping me with everything. We talk about the problems. We talk. He's my, he listens to me all the things I'm going through, and he helps me with the signs. He helps me with the open. He's my cheerleader, and so many friends in the business, other realtors. I am always talking with other realtors, and we share our experience and what we are doing and how solve problems. And even if I am the listing agent, the buyer's agent, working as a team, I always tell them when I make an offer, when I receive an offer, I said, let's work as a team. This is so important that both the buyer and the seller are happy with this transaction. We need to work together, make it happen. Whatever it takes, we are going to work and do it. But we are not alone. The title company, always there is always somebody there to give us an idea. Even buyers, previous clients, we meet with them, and we need their when we finish a transaction, we need their feedback. How was your transaction? What is that you like? What you didn't like? What can I improve in my business? There is always people around us that are willing to help and give us their opinion.
Yeah. I mean, even though we operate as individual contractors and agents, we really can't do this business without so many people participating and supporting us along the way. And I don't know about you all, but one of the best compliments is when somebody in your life who you may not even have done a transaction with, but they recommend you, or they suggest your name, and maybe it's not an actual fit, or the person wants to buy outside of your area, but still they thought of you. Oh, what a great feeling that is.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're getting it. Everyone's understanding that there's a bigger group of people, and sometimes we have to stop and realize who's already on our team without actually having to hire a single person. Okay. So a little bit more about acquiring people when you need them. Every day, as the slide says, we're coming into contact with a lot of the people like Viviana, you pointed out, the title rep, other agents, people in our office, other agents in our office. I mean, this is the biggest, most collaborative group that you could tap into. Everyone is so forthcoming with information and willing to share. You just ask somebody. Like, our Facebook group is great for posting questions. It seems like there are always helpful responses, and people are just willing to help one another. So there are people that you can rely on and you can tap into without having to pay. Of course, what goes around comes around. So you're participating in the give and take. When something gets posed by another agent, obviously, if you can, you're there to help too. So look to your allied resources. What can you get for, and I don't mean this to be in a cheapskate kind of way, but what can you get for free in a way? Like, how can you get the most out of people who are already there with information, willing to share it without breaking the bank, especially for newer agents or those who are on a budget, which is all of us these days. And then really pick and choose when you need to spend the money. And you don't want to be too frugal on spending money when it comes to hiring good help. The key is not just hiring a body to fill the role, but making sure you're hiring the right person for the expectation that you have of them and the task that you're expecting of them, and be prepared to pay for that. But before you get to that paying stage, again, look to the allied resources and get as much as you can, honorably, of course, from the people who are already there willing to share it. Anyone have questions about that? Does that make sense?
What is allied resources? Is this
just like it says, people who can help you build, sustain, improve your business. So
not a company. This is not a
no. They're considered allies. So what is an ally? An ally is a friend. An ally is a champion. An ally is a guardian. There's somebody who's there to help you. So I think title reps are a really great example because they are so willing to help us, right? How many of us have had title reps give us calls or come to the office and teach a class or be willing to share their systems and their software with us and give us farming material? There's a reason they're doing that. Of course, they want our business. So when you have a listing, they come to mind and they're the person that you hire to actually do the escrow for you. But they're willing to share that information. You're not taking advantage of them. They're there willingly to share their tools. That's a great example of an allied resource. Or a business networking group. So maybe you belong to a networking group where you're champions for one another's businesses. So maybe you're in a group where there's other industry representatives. And when somebody needs home insurance, for instance, Viviana, using you as an example, you're like, I've got the best home insurance person. I'm going to connect you with them. And then when they hear of somebody who needs a house to be helped purchase or sold, they say, oh, I've got the best real estate agent, Viviana, let me connect you. So those are the examples of allied resources.
Thank you.
Where you're not having to pay them. Acquiring the people you need. So again, free partnerships as much as possible, so that you're not taking on the responsibility of paying for as long as you can, but then be prepared to pay when you need to. And again, personal tasks. Those are something to keep in mind as leverage. If you would rather just focus on work, that's like where you love to just shine, and you don't want to pick up your dry cleaning or go to the grocery store, or do your own accounting, whatever it might be, that's leverage. Hire people to do those things for you because you're just freeing up your time to do the things that are going to earn you money. Okay, so another question. Where do you find professionals who are looking for part-time, per transaction, or short-term work assignments? This is the biggest question, I think, when people are finally ready to hire is, okay, well, now what? Where do I go to find these people? Anyone have any ideas or experiences?
Other agents, your friends, ask,
I don't have any
don't look for people in secret, right? Let other people know you're looking to fulfill that position or whatever. And then hopefully they can say, hey, I know, or, let it out word of mouth. That can always get you started anyway.
That's a great example. That's perfect. And here's why I think it's so great. If you post on your social media or through word of mouth to your friends and family, what are you doing? You're modeling. You're saying, I'm looking for somebody to fill this role. And what you're doing is you're telling your sphere of influence, the people who already know, like, and trust you, it's okay to ask for business and for referral and to put yourself out there and say, I'm looking for somebody to help me with this. And so when your friends and family and people in your sphere are now looking to purchase a home and they say, I'm looking for a real estate agent, and they put it out there, your name is going to be happily shared because you've already modeled that for people. The other benefit about putting it out there publicly is that you're letting people know you're in business. Hey, I'm looking for somebody to help me with some accounting for my real estate business. What have you done? You've given yourself a plug without doing the typical, hey, look at this house I just sold. And we all do that, and that's okay. And that's part of the game. Not knocking that, I do it too. But it's nice to mix it up, isn't it? To be able to say, I'm in business and real estate without being blatant about it. You're asking for people's opinion and recommendation. And that's kind of a compliment that you trust them to recommend somebody for you. So I love that idea, Meg. You're putting it out there, and you're probably going to get some highly vetted referrals as a result. So that's definitely one way of doing it. Craigslist used to be the go-to, maybe not so much anymore. I don't know how many people still use Craigslist, but still there's people who are out there and who use it. There are other platforms that you can use called Fiverr or Upwork. Basically what you're looking for is the gig economy. If you've heard this term before, people who specialize in things and don't want to work for just one company. In a way, they're working for themselves, but they're taking on jobs project by project, or maybe they're just working a few hours per week for one person. But when you add that up cumulatively, they end up working a full-time job. They just might be splitting it up amongst several different clients. So for instance, if you need somebody to help you with some social media or flyers, any of your marketing, you can hire people to do that for you, and they don't even have to live in our area. They can be from out of state or even out of the country. You can also hire people to help you with, of course, your transaction coordination, with your accounting, anything that might be time consuming that's not necessarily directly earning money, like lead generation. You could be hiring people, and there's, again, platforms where you can look up part-time workers, and it's contractual. So you're not hiring them as an employee. You don't have to provide benefits. You're just saying, look, this is a job I need you to do, and you can let me know how much you charge and how long you think it'll take, and we'll kind of negotiate and figure that out. But you're not on the hook for providing steady income for them. That's part of the gig economy. There's also people who are local who just want a little bit of work to keep up. Moms groups are a great place to tap into. A lot of stay-at-home moms, or moms who are on pause with their careers, still want to be doing something, but maybe not full-time. And that's a great way for us as agents to start to leverage. We don't want the overcommitment of having to provide 20 hours a week for somebody, but we could say, hey, I could give you 4 hours of work per week. And that might be exactly what they're looking for. So some Facebook groups that specialize or tap into that demographic is great. And then there might be just other agents who have a slower business that would love to do some side work that keeps them busy, that is in the industry that they already know. And that doesn't totally take away from what they're doing either. Any other thoughts or examples?
Sometimes if you go into like certain Starbucks, they post them on the board. There's college students that will post part-time work needed.
Yeah.
It's another resource.
Colleges are a great thing to tap into as well. I have hired college students as interns. And so there's usually a point of contact in like the career department for a college, and you can start with them. They're kind of like a liaison, and you can say, hey, look, this is the type of work I'm looking for. And if they have students who are looking in that general sort of line of work, then they can connect you. So yeah, that's a great example. Virtual assistants, VAs. Who has heard this term? Who actually knows what they do? Virtual assistants are, it's kind of a catch-all name, honestly. You can be considered a VA, but only specialize in one thing. So assistants, I think traditionally are the people you envision sitting behind a desk outside the main office of somebody in some corporate world, right? It's not so much that anymore. Maybe that person is doing that type of work, but virtual assistants can also be people who specialize in just writing text. Maybe you want somebody to write a bunch of blogs for you or your newsletter. That could be your virtual assistant. You can hire somebody just to do that. Or in a way, TCs can be virtual assistants. We have obviously Lindsay in our office, and there's other transaction coordination services in our area that are real people who live here in the Bay Area, but there's also TC services that are based out of California, or at least out of the Bay Area, and you can hire them and never actually meet them in person. So they would also be considered somewhat of a VA, but they specialize in the transaction coordination. So a VA is a great way to start, because you don't, again, have to worry about, well, where do I put them? Do they come into an office? There's no overhead. You don't have to worry about getting them a desk and a computer. Part of the arrangement, part of the system with a VA is that they've already got the tools they need. You just need to tell them what you want done. They do it from the comfort of their own home or office, wherever they work, and then they get you that work completed, whatever it might be that you're hiring them. Another kind of virtual assistant is somebody called an inside sales associate. So somebody who's maybe doing some lead generation for you. You're hiring somebody to set up appointments and make phone calls. There's systems for that. And there are companies that do just that and specialize in that, but they also can be virtual. They don't have to be sitting next to you in your office, whether it's here in Campbell or at your home. So it's basically somebody that you can leverage virtually. All right, so when you are acquiring the people that you need, I can't stress this enough. The top most important thing is the expectations. This is true in life, I think, generally, right? We all have these visions of how we think things are going to go and what the other person's supposed to do and say. And when they don't, because they're not a mind reader, you feel let down. So the key is really being clear about your expectations up front with that person. Not that they're unrealistic or unreasonable, just, hey, this is what I need and how I envision getting the help, so that the person you're contracting with or hiring is clear, and then they can kind of filter themselves in or out. Maybe they realize, oh, I actually am not very good at those things, or that's not really my strength. Then you're not wasting their time and they're not wasting yours, and you end up getting frustrated. You've been really clear with them from the get-go what your expectations are. So that's super duper helpful if you can have those candid conversations. But going back, sorry. Some of the things that you have to consider is the questions below, or these numbers below. Are you actually ready? Do you have the budget for it? And you have to have a budget then. You have to do your accounting to know, do you have dollars that you can set aside for these people or for these tasks? Which tasks are you going to contract out? And then who do you know that can help you either do those things already, or who can help you find those people? And we've talked a little bit about how to go about finding those people. But I would say this one right here, number 3, which tasks you will be contracting out, that kind of goes to that first exercise where you're making the list of things that you do that earn you money, the things that you do that you enjoy. And then there's got to be that list of things that don't make those 2 first categories, right? What is it about your life or your business that is not enjoyable for you, or that you can hire somebody to do for you that would then free you up to focus on those other things, or that would make those other things a little bit easier? Lead generation is a perfect example. We all need to lead generate. That's like the foundation of our business. Without leads, we don't have one, right? But what do we need to do to get those leads? What type of lead generation are you doing? Where are you focusing your energy? Do you specialize in any one category? And so let's say, for example, you are farming, you want to farm a particular area, and you want to focus on the properties that are not owner occupied, right? They're rentals. Why would you want to focus on those properties? Maybe the people who own those properties aren't interested in being landlords anymore. And they think, yeah, if somebody could just show up at my door and help me sell my house, I'd be happy to be done being a landlord. Okay, so that's a lead generation tactic. How do you get those names? What are you doing to get in front of those people? That can be a real stumbling block for agents. You have this idea of going after these individuals, but you don't have it set up to be able to make those phone calls or to knock on those doors. What could you do to set yourself up for success for that lead generation? If you, does somebody talking or have an idea?
Sometimes you can ask your title reps. They do help you with that.
Of course, that's leverage. Exactly. So if you want to tap into your title rep and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you help me with that? Great. What have you done then? You've removed that stumbling block of, I've got this idea, but don't know how to go about achieving it. Perfect. Leverage. You've tapped into somebody to do that for you. And that's something they'll do for free. What if you want to door knock and you want to leave some materials with them, and you're not a graphic designer and you don't know where to start? Are you going to knock on those doors if you don't have material? Maybe. You can. You don't actually have to have anything to knock on a door. You could just show up, tell them what you need to tell them, or leave a business card, and that's sufficient. But maybe you want to leave them some material. Are you going to knock on those doors if you don't have that material? Maybe not. And if you're not a graphic designer and you don't feel comfortable putting something together, is that preventing you from going out and doing it? Possibly. So that goes on the list of things, tasks that you might want to contract out. If you hire somebody to create that material that you can then leave with a homeowner or whomever, and it makes you more likely to do that income generating task, put it on the list, and that's the person that you might be looking to hire. And a little tip to you, we have somebody in our office who actually can be hired, who does create marketing material. Her name is Lauren. So that's an easy first step, right? You don't actually have to hire her. She's not your employee. You can talk to her, use her to set up some materials for you, go out and do that lead generation. And if you're like, wow, I actually did it and I got a lead out of it, that was a success, then maybe you're realizing, okay, I need to incorporate either Lauren or somebody else into my business on a regular basis, leverage their skill set and their time to create the materials that then empower me to go out and do my lead generation. Does that make sense? Okay, so getting the most out of this experience. There's these three different categories: the prisoner, the vacationer, and the explorer. So again, self-identification, which category do you fall in? Are you the prisoner, the vacationer, or the explorer? So I'll give everyone just a minute to kind of read through this and you can get an idea of where you might land. And there's a little giveaway at the bottom. So the prisoner has to be there, doesn't want to be there, doesn't know why they're there. And then it gives you some examples of how that's reflected. The vacationer is a day in training better than a day on the job. They're there maybe mentally, temporarily. And then again, there's some supporting examples of how that might be, how they might show up. And then there's the explorer, excited and curious about the new knowledge, skills, and tools they will discover in class. And you can see how the explorer of the three is the most preferred. How they engage, how they ask meaningful questions, how they are coming from a place of contribution and acceptance. These are the types of people that you're looking to be and to employ or to engage with. These folks are not going to be as participatory. So acquiring the best people that you need, you want to employ somebody that represents a great commitment, and you want to follow a few rules. First leads, then income, then help. That's Gary Keller's recommendation. And I think you've heard that from mentors in our office and just sort of generally within the industry. You want to lead with income. Paying for lead sources or just throwing money at things that seem like the shiny new object and that are going to be the solution to all your problems is not usually the way to go. Sometimes getting in the trenches and going through it yourself, as painful as it might be, is part of what gives you more confidence, more knowledge. And you also then are able to identify who's going to best be the person to fill the role that you don't want to, because you've done it. You've been there, you know why it's a pain point. And so you're looking for somebody who actually has the skill set to do the work that you may not enjoy as much. And it's not to say that it's bad work or that it's unenjoyable for all. It might just be something that you personally don't want to do, if that makes sense. Something that might be fun, like hosting open houses, Meg and Elizabeth, isn't for everybody. And that might not be a go-to lead source for all agents. And that's okay. There's more than one lead source. There's different ways to build a business. So if you're somebody that has a listing, but you don't want to host that open house because that's just like painful for you, that's okay. There's leverage. You can find people to host it for you. That's the beauty of it. Yep. We've got a hand raised. Volunteer. Okay. Hire the best.
Aubrie, there's something that when I had an assistant, my problem was that I had some weeks I had a lot of work, a lot of things to do for her. And then the next week, oh my gosh, what next? Maybe there is just 2-3 hours that week. And I don't know how to manage their time, because some weeks I have to do the work. It's me.
Well, that's kind of the nature of our business, right? We do a lot of working in and on our businesses. There's times when we are preparing to get the business, and then we're in the transaction, and then we're busy dealing with the transaction, and then there's sort of that lull afterwards. So yeah, that's a very common thing when you're hiring people for real estate, specifically as an assistant, is the ebb and flow. Is you might not always have the same number of reports coming through for them to work on. You might have 2 in transaction, you might have 0, you might have 10. It's going to be really dependent on what's happening in the market, when your clients are ready to buy or sell.
Right.
So having that conversation and setting those expectations at the outset is important. If it's somebody that needs a certain number of hours every week, no matter what, then maybe they're not the right person for you. Or you have to figure out a way to have work that can be done that's not as pressing and that can get set on the back burner. So maybe you have longer term projects and your shorter put out the fire projects that you want them to work on. And when there's not a lot of business or work for them to do in some weeks, then they're focusing on those longer term projects that it's okay to put aside when the busier time comes and you need them to like help you put out some fires. Or again, maybe you just say, look, the nature of this business is I might have 2 hours worth of work for you one week and 10 hours the next week. If you're open to that, we'll talk, at the end of the following week to set up what we think you're going to do, or I just send you the work, and if you can do it, you do it, and we bill accordingly. And maybe you just look to find somebody that's a little bit more flexible, that's okay with that type of schedule. It can be tricky. And again, expectations are critical. Or you just maybe pay somebody regardless. It depends on the arrangement and what your financial situation is also. Finding the right person is also really critical. So there's a personality fit, certainly. And I think we all feel like we're good judges of character. But there's actually a scientific and more methodical approach to it, and it's the career visioning process. So even if you feel like you can talk to somebody and shoot from the hip and say like, yeah, I think this will be a good person. If you really want to hire the right people who are going to be with you long-term, if you're truly scaling your business and building more of a team and not just subcontracting, then spending the extra time to find out what their DISC personality is and going through the true career visioning process will get you somebody that's a really good fit that will stay with you for a much longer period. So to do that, you want to follow this methodology, the same acronym. So SMART, quick, intelligent. Again, emotional intelligence, EQ, that's sort of the buzzword if you haven't heard that already. Somebody who kind of gets it and reads between the lines, if you will. That's a good way of describing it. That's the S in same. A is attractive to clients and others. Oh, I'm surprised I didn't expand on that. Motivated and ethical. So the person that you're looking to hire has all of these characteristics for the most part. They might not be the stereotypical example, but in getting to know them, maybe they're not super talkative, but they're very ethical and they get the work done and they're really motivated, and you can tell that they're smart and they're quick and they get it, but maybe they're not super chatty Cathys like most of us are in the real estate business. You're looking deeper at the sort of the heart of who the person is. And again, if you can go through the career visioning process to identify what their personality type is and what their strengths are, then it's somebody hopefully that's complementing you. So I don't know if I'm speaking over your head with the DISC personality, but there's 4 different strengths in all of us. And if you score really high in one of the 4 and low in the others, maybe you're looking for somebody that's a little bit higher in those other categories to sort of balance you out. In other words, we're talking about this in maybe an hour to an hour and a half max, but it's a much more detailed process when you're truly hiring somebody. When you're hiring them and you're bringing them on and you're responsible for steady income and maybe even some benefits and they're your employee, then you really want to vet this person and go through these steps. If you're just subcontracting and you're going to one of those platforms we talked about where you can just hire somebody as a gig, like a one-off project. You don't necessarily need to be doing these things. You're not looking at who they are as a person, although of course you want them to be ethical. You're just hiring them to do the job. But when you're truly hiring somebody to be a representation of your brand and your business, this is where you're going to be taking the time. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so hiring, when you're on the hiring path of a millionaire real estate agent, this is the path to the 7th level. So for those of you who may not be familiar with what that means, Gary Keller in the MREA book lays out basically the roadmap for how to get to a 7th level where you're not really working in the business so much, you're just overseeing things. And that comes with leverage. You don't get to that 7th level where you're just sort of telling people what to do in a way. And I don't mean that in like a power trip sense, just you've worked yourself out of the business because you've created such a strong team and you've leveraged so many people that your business is running and you're overseeing it without having to be running to open a door and show a property or fill out disclosures or whatever it might be. You've got people to do those things for you. You're now running a multi-million-dollar business. And the whole point of, I think, this quote is just to remind you that in order to get to that level, you have to utilize people to do it. All right, so taking stock of what you've got. Do you have the right people? How many people here that are in this class right now have somebody that you kind of hire or you've started to do some leveraging? You know, we've all talked about our examples of our support systems, our friends and our family, and maybe some other people in the business, but does anybody here actually hire or employ anyone? I'm curious. And it's okay if nobody does. Okay, that's
I
all
do
right.
not.
That's
Except
why,
for Lindsay.
that's why we're here. That's the whole point of it. I was just curious. Okay, so do you have the right people? You're looking for these attributes when you are hiring them. Do they have the strong work ethic? Are they resilient? You kind of have to be in our business, right? Sometimes things don't go the way that we want them to go. We don't get that offer accepted. We don't get any offers, whatever it might be. We've interviewed for a listing and we didn't get it, or we've spent time working with buyers and they choose not to purchase, or they go with a different agent. I mean, you really have to be resilient in this business. Am I right? Somebody who's trainable, especially again, if you're hiring them for your actual team. So do you want to bring on a buyer's agent? Do you have a lot of listings and you want to focus on those and maybe not be bogged down so much with buyers? So you want to bring someone on your team to do that? They have to be trainable for sure. You want them to have that work ethic. And if you have systems, which you should, you want them to be able to follow them. If you don't have systems, it's going to be really hard to onboard somebody, but you also might with that very first person, and this happens a lot with successful agents, that first person you're hiring, their first task might be to document the systems for you. That's true leverage, right? So you have the way that you do things, but it's not written down and you know you need help. That can be step one. All right, great. I'm bringing you on and I'm being totally clear with you. Your first task is to just follow me around, watch what I do. We're going to talk all the time and you're going to document all of these things and put together your own handbook. And now you know what it is that I'm going to need you to do because you've seen me do it. And you're going to be able to follow that handbook because you're the one that's essentially putting it together. So you're not only leveraging that person for the long-term intent, but you've also leveraged them to do the thing that is the biggest hurdle for all of us when we're hiring that first person, is actually putting together somewhat in writing what it is we're expecting them to do. I think that's, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that's the thing that keeps everyone from actually taking that step is I don't know what to tell them to do. I know I need them to do stuff, but I've never been a manager before and I'm not sure how to get it into writing. Does that sound maybe true for anyone here?
Yeah, I was going to add on to Viviana's comment about, I don't know, and it kind of segues into this. And it happens to me all the time in teaching. You know, I have a class, I'm in charge of the class. I know what I'm doing. I know it needs to get done. And then they go, hey, we hired, an aide for you. And then it's finding stuff to do for that aide so that they want to come back. and not like accidentally insulting them because you don't know them and you don't know what they're capable of, and you're still trying to figure out what you need. So it can get very overwhelming and scary, I think.
Yeah. And one of those things that might be helpful is having that frank conversation with that person outside of course class to say, tell me a little bit about yourself. What brought you here? What do you like to do? What would you consider your strengths to be? If you watched me for a day or two and then jotted down some notes about what I'm doing that you think you would like to do or learn more about, or that you think might be supplemental or helpful, start there and you can get a sense of where they're naturally leaning into. And maybe that's helpful for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe what they're suggesting they'd like to do is not what you need them to do, but you've already sort of identified then what their strengths are and if they're going to be a good fit long-term. Now, in your case, Meg, I think somebody else might be doing the assigning and you don't have a lot of choice, but it still relates to what we're talking about here. When you're hiring somebody to observe you and they're telling you what they like to do, and what they like to do are the things you like to do, and the stuff they don't like to do is the stuff you also don't like to do, then you have a problem, right? So you're trying to find, again, that person to balance you out. Okay, so again,
do you pay when you're training them? Do you have to pay them?
it's up to you in the arrangement that you make. So sometimes you can do kind of like a shadow situation where you're saying, come and watch me, observe me. We'll talk a little bit. It's like an interview in a way, like a working interview. And you'll see if it's a good fit for you and I'll see if it's a good fit for me. But you have to be clear with them whether or not you're planning to pay them. I would say it makes good sense to pay them something. There's some compensation, if nothing else, for the very expensive gas that we have these days for them to get to wherever you might be. So there's some sort of stipend or compensation just for their time, but you can make those arrangements with whoever it is that you're looking to hire. With a contract gig, if you're hiring them from a platform, you don't have that opportunity. They're going to tell you what their cost is, and maybe there's some room for negotiation, maybe not. You can pick and choose who you're going to hire. There's a lot of people to hire. So if you're price sensitive, you will find somebody else in your budget, but they may or may not be providing the service that aligns with that budget. So there could be a little bit of trial and error. Okay, so do you have the right people? Talking about going from here to there, for folks who might have some people already in their circle. What do you want? What do you have now? And who would you replace if you had a better resource? So this is, again, an exercise for us to think about people we already are operating with that might be part of our circle. Is there somebody that could be doing things better, differently? I hate to keep using titles as an example, but they're just such a easy, general example. Maybe you've used a title company for one of your escrows and it turns out you don't like how they do business. Do you need to switch that up? And if so, why? How is that making things better for you? Is it about timeliness? Is it about your reputation? Is it about you having to track things down because they weren't giving you an update? Time is money, to use a cliche. But if you're having to babysit, then maybe they're not the right partner for you. Are your people a behavioral fit? Excuse me one second. I'm going to mute myself while I cough, if I can. Sorry about that. Tickle my throat. Are your people a behavioral fit? So each job has its own behavioral requirements. Isn't that the truth in life? I don't know about you, but a lot of just service professions, it's a tough role to be in. And you're thinking, this is not a good fit for you. This is not a long-term career. Maybe you're not a people person. You should maybe consider something else, or hopefully that's just a stepping stone for them. But behavioral traits are a big factor. So if you're hiring somebody to do sales calls for you, for instance, you definitely have a very specific behavioral personality type that you're looking to fulfill that role. Am I right? If somebody's calling and saying, for instance, Laura, I'm calling on behalf of Laura Zavala and XYZ, that person's gonna need to be personable and cheery and positive and determined and resilient and not afraid to take no, and isn't gonna get beaten down if they're making a bunch of calls and nobody wants to take an appointment, right? They have to have a certain personality type. But if it's somebody that's on the back end that's never interacting with any of your clients or customers, and they're just putting together your marketing materials, then, you know, that particular personality isn't going to be as necessary. So you're using your judgment, of course, with who it is you're hiring and what type of strengths they need for their personality. Do you need top grade or D hire? Ooh, interesting. People often hire employees too quickly and hold on to them too long when things aren't working out. Yeah, that's a tough one. We've hired people, again, going off of what we think is our gut, and, you know, we're a good judge of character, but we didn't go through some of the harder exercises to find out if that person can actually do the job or wants to do the job, or has the skill set, or even just the communication that you need. Maybe they can do the job, but they're not communicating with you in a way that makes you feel confident in the job they're doing. So we can hire people too fast, and then we can keep people too long because, you know, we have big hearts and don't want to let them go, feel obligated, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're needing help with that, reach out to other agents or to a coach or mentor to get guidance on how to have those tough conversations. But before you hire somebody, classes like this, and again, the career visioning class, can really help you get clear on how to hire appropriately. Focus on doing the right things. We should always be doing that, right? Making sure your people do the right things. Magnify your potential income, multiply a force to gain advantage, take your business to the next level. That's the whole point of this class, is leverage to do these things. You want to magnify the outcome, you want to gain advantage, and you want to take your business to the next level. And we've talked a lot about people, but I wanted to talk a little bit about systems as well, and get some ideas and just share a couple from my list that might be helpful, because we've talked about some of the general people, but there's others that you might be thinking about or have forgotten about. So Jason, you mentioned one, a coach. We have KW coaches, we have productivity coaches, we have the mastery class coaches. You can actually hire a coach that keeps you accountable, that you talk to. And the beauty of it is that it's usually an agent that's outside of our area. So like, you can be really candid with those people, and they already know the Keller Williams culture. But you can also hire outside of KW if that's something that makes sense to you, or if you've come across a program that you think is just really phenomenal and it's not affiliated, of course, with another brokerage, but just a coaching system. Assistants, of course, bookkeepers. I don't know, maybe that's a hiccup for you, is just keeping track of your finances. Accountants, attorneys, there's people within our business and our industry, of course, that we've talked about. But I would also say other agents. If you can get a little hive, a little mastermind of agents who are at the same place as you in your business, I don't know, there's something to that. There's something magical about sharing ideas and pain points and having discussions, because these people can relate to where you are in your business. So if you're a brand new agent, maybe grab a couple of other agents and plan to meet for coffee once a week or every, other week, to just talk shop, not as a complaining session, but to champion each other and to share lessons learned and just be there for each other. And also, get a group text going. I know, Viviana, you and I are a part of a group text with a bunch of ladies in our office, and it's so helpful. Hey, I came across this really great stager. Does anybody know a plumber that specializes in this? Has anybody encountered this with the contract? You know, it's just so great when you can have people that are doing the same type of business as you, and again, are in the same place to just be your champions. And so maybe you're a new agent, maybe you're kind of like a mid-level agent or, you know, high-level agent. Those are maybe the people you want to get together as part of your mastermind. Or like we talked about a little bit, a business networking group. Maybe you're partnering and masterminding with other people that aren't in real estate, but you still get to talk business and get great ideas and inspired from them. And then they are also thinking about you for referral purposes and vice versa. You're going to refer their business and they're going to hopefully refer you as well. Any other ideas or thoughts along those lines, people that we haven't talked about or considered? That's okay. Okay, so getting back in the game, a new strategy: quit passing out leads, start passing out appointments. That's interesting. Appointments, the name of the game, right? Train and coach your people to do the right things well. There is a lot of investment when you're building a team or leveraging people. You're hiring the right folks, but you're also spending a lot of investment in who they are and how they do the work that represents you. And so retention is key. In our business and in all industries, there's a lot of effort and energy that goes into onboarding a new employee and training them and teaching them and imparting all of your wisdom and having them model things after the way you want them to be done. That's time consuming. So you want them to stick around. But if you do those things and they feel empowered and they feel supported, they will stick around. These are just sort of pearls of wisdom, if you will. And then a word about systems and tools. So systems are how you get the job done, and tools are what you use to get the job done. So a system you might have put together is around lead generation, for instance, the one we used, farming. You might have a specific approach for farming. You're going to identify the houses that don't have owner occupancy, so they're rentals. That's your system. And then the tools you're going to use is the title company to generate that list of who they are, and your marketing person to put together the marketing materials that you're going to use when you send them mailers about why they should sell their home. Does that make sense? And then technology, of course, being with Keller Williams and all the technology that we have to offer, and of course, leading the industry with all of the tech, but there's tech outside of KW too. Find what works for you. Again, don't gravitate towards the shiny object. We have presentations even in our own office about XYZ company, and it costs usually something to use their services. So be really clear on what you want to accomplish and whether or not that technology is the right tool and solution. Sometimes just doing the work ourselves or finding the person to do the work for us is actually the way to get us to the end result, not the technology. If you pay for a software to look up all of the people who own a home and you have all their contact information and it's there at your fingertips, but you don't have the interest or the desire to use that tool, you might be paying monthly or annually for this service and you're not actually utilizing it to its maximum potential. What do you really need? What you really need is the person to do that task for you. The leverage is the person, the tool is the technology. So we tend to just put money towards things that we think are going to be the solution and that they aren't. So having those kind of harder conversations, making that list, what do I like doing and what don't I like to do? And even if you don't understand the technology, hiring that person to do the task for you, again, one of the first things that you're going to give them to do is to find out what tools they need to accomplish the goal. Let them figure it out. If you know there's a particular tool you want them to use, great. But if you don't know, or you want to see if they can come up with some tools, give them those assignments before anything else to find out what will make their job easier and what they would gravitate towards using, if that makes sense. Okay, bottom line, wrapping it up. The 80-20 principle. So predictably, 80% of our results, if you've heard this before, I'm sure, will come from 20% of our actions. So in a day, any given day where you're working, only 20% of that day is going to actually result in 80% of your success. It's actually not that much time. It doesn't take that much time to be successful. If you are really efficient with that time, like teaching classes when your son's asleep, perfect. You can get stuff done. He has to cooperate, of course, but that's a little bit of luck involved too. And then the greatest leverage of all, of course, when your goal is mastery and success, you can leverage your time to yield the highest productivity. If you spend your time strategically focused on only a few key actions, that's a lot of words, but basically efficiency. How do you want to spend your time? Do you want to spend it doing the things that you don't like and you keep putting them off? Or do you want to spend your time doing the things you really enjoy, personally or professionally? And another lovely little flow chart talking about the next steps and some other classes where you can dive deeper. But basically listing management, listings monthly, your pipeline, your value, your GCI, understanding agent lore, being the local expert. I mean, these are a lot of buzzwords. And if you know what they mean, you understand how they're going to get you to your goal. And if you don't know what they mean, and that's okay if you're a new agent, continuing to participate in classes like this and understanding what these things are and how they're puzzle pieces to the bigger picture, it'll start to make more sense. And grab any one of us that are seasoned agents and pick our brain and find out a little bit more about them and how you can get to the next level in your business, whatever that goal might be. More examples of sort of the pipeline. You have your listing appointments to listings taken, which then also leads to closing of the listing that you have, but also picking up more buyers. We love to lead with listings. That's a term you've heard before. And it's true. I actually have a listing right now. I'm like a walking advertisement for this. I have a listing right now that I got from another listing that was right next door. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't even circle prospect, but the fact that my sign was in the yard was enough for them to consider me as an agent. So it's true. You really do want to lead with listings if possible. Okay, the action plan. So it's recommending that we don't put this guide away without developing a plan to put into place. And I know I just talked the majority of the time, so you guys are probably like ready for your afternoon coffee. But hopefully there were some takeaways or even just like little glimmers of inspiration that you could implement or dive into a little deeper and create your own action plan. It doesn't have to be 100 steps. It doesn't even have to be 10 steps. Maybe it's just 3. Maybe right now it's just creating that list. It could take a little bit of time for you to really sit down and look at your business and say, okay, what do I do as a real estate agent? And get granular even, like write down the simplest of things, follow-up emails, follow-up text messages, any of the little stuff that can sometimes like fall off our plate. We all think of the big things that we do, lead generation being one of them, but what does lead generation actually mean to you? Write everything down and then create some categories for yourself. What do you love doing? Put a heart next to it or star next to it or put it in its own column. These are the things I love doing. These are the things that I can tolerate it, but I, would rather not. And these are the things I despise doing. And have one for your business and your personal life and figure out if there's a way for you to leverage some of the things that you don't like doing or are holding you back from focusing on the things that you do enjoy doing. And maybe there's somebody that can fulfill that role. There are, of course, other shift classes. This is the 3rd of a series. So if there are any other topics in here that you're interested in, or if you just want to roll right through them all and take them all and be an expert, I truly think that the majority of the topics that we cover are applicable regardless of whether or not we're in a shifting market. I mean, all the things we talked about today, right? We haven't even factored in whether or not interest rates are high or things are sitting on the market a little bit longer, which they are. Everything that we talked about, we can implement, even if it's in a booming market and business is there for everybody. Am I right?
Yeah.
Ahas to achievement. So take a minute. And if any of these are applicable, write them down. If you have some ahas, if you want to share them with everybody in the group, would love to hear them. But if there are some like personal takeaways that you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's okay too. Just jot them down. Some actions that you want to take. Maybe it's just one. Maybe it's just making that list like we talked about. Some tools, even if you don't know what the actual tool is, an idea of what the tool could be that you could do a little bit of research on. Your accountability. So what does accountability look like? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? Do you have somebody that is checking in with you or that you want to buddy up with and figure out what accountability looks like? That mastermind I was talking about. So if you feel like you could use some accountability, but you don't want to pay for it, find another agent and just say, look, we're going to meet once a week and we're going to talk about our goals and we're going to hold each other to it. And, you know, maybe the penalty is whoever didn't do the previous week's homework buys the coffee, something as simple as that. And then achievement. What do you hope to achieve? What does that look like? And if you're, you know, somebody who likes to do vision boards or just visual in general, and you have what achievement looks like to you, put it up visually for yourself. Maybe it's a picture of something you're hoping to purchase or accomplish, or, you know, what your life would look like or your business would look like when you have that achievement. And that hopefully can keep you motivated as to what you're working towards. All right, that is it. Any questions?
Tell me about how is your day, typically a day for your work?
I will be honest, since having a child, I've become much more structured, if you can believe it, because you have to be. If you've had kids or you know people who have kids, you really have to maximize the time when they are not, you know, needing your attention. And it's crazy because I think, wow, I could have been doing so much more with my business without kids, and I didn't realize it. So when he's in daycare, specifically, I have my list of things that I have to get done. Like, it's imperative. If I don't get these things done, my business doesn't succeed, and I stick to it. So definitely having a list. But my time, I will be honest, has shrunk down to just the days that he's with the babysitter. So I don't think my schedule looks like everybody else's. I know there's a couple other moms in here that maybe can relate to that. But whatever it is, write it down. And like I said, if you write it down, I would challenge you or encourage you, if you're writing stuff on your schedule or your calendar, look back over the week and highlight the things you did and cross out the things you didn't do or something along those lines. And then look at the balance. If there are more things that you're not doing, and it's going to be tough because you're like, oh, I put it down, but I didn't do it. That's okay. Acknowledge that you didn't do it and find out why. This could be an opportunity for leverage.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or things anyone else would like to share that has been successful for them, or that, you know, an idea was generated? And it's, again, okay if nobody has anything else to say.
I went back. I was doing everything in the computer, and I wasn't. It wasn't working for me as good as the title company gave me the planner. And I am everything writing down on my planner, and it is working so much better now. I feel I'm doing more things. And even I have a list of the sellers, a list of the buyers, a list of the people I am working with, my pipeline, and everything is my planner. And it's so much, I take it with me. I'm waiting in the doctor, you know, there's an appointment, and I am in the car waiting for my child or anything. I have those few minutes to go through my planner.
Yeah.
And see what I have to do.
It may feel old school, but if that's what works, that's what works.
Yeah.
In Bold, you know, one of the activities for those of you who have taken Bold is to handwrite what your schedule looks like, and to actually go in with a highlighter and highlight according to what those tasks correspond with. So is it a money-making task? And then you highlight typically with green, because green is money. Is it a family-oriented task? Is it a transactional related task? When you start kind of color coordinating and identifying, like you're talking about, Viviana, how it corresponds to your business, it's eye-opening. Like, where are you really spending your time?
I like that.
Yeah, it's a nice reminder. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining.
You.
Hopefully there's some nuggets. I mean, most of the work is created by the Shift program and Gary Keller. So I'm just here to basically guide you through the slides. And I apologize again for being just a little bit late. That is the one downside of having a little one, but he has cooperated by staying asleep. So yay.
Well, thank you, Aubrie, for coming on, and we all get it. We, most of us have kids. We totally get it. I mean, I'm going to be leaving to take my kids to the mall right now. So yay. Like
Air conditioning, right? Hey, and
Yeah.
you never know who you might run into and have a conversation about real estate with.
That is so true.
Okay, everybody, well, have a good week, and I hope
You
to see you
guys
around the
too.
office.
Everybody, see you later. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.